Hello, everyone. Welcome to the man of, aka the villain of truth, aka the Black Panther of Nigeria. We have few discussions we are going to be having this morning. Hopefully, my audience are going to join me so they can experience and enjoy this topic with me. So they can experience and enjoy this topic with. Today, the subject we are discussing on is about birthright. Is about birthright. We are going to be having conversation later today's evening on the part two and continuation of why you might consider settling for less. And trust me, I know when I say something like that, people might be upset or like, what's this guy? What do we mean? Is he just trying to be controversial? No, there are different insights towards most of my topic that I discuss on. Please, I just want to be sure that this particular network is fine. So let me do a little bit of verification. So I don't just think I'm speaking fine and then I realize it's still buffering. Okay. Mm, Good morning, everyone. Okay. I think this is fine. Let me give few moments for my audience to join me and let's discuss certain subjects that you guys might find very interesting. The purpose of my speech to a lot of us is so that our eyes can be open to certain things that we might be ignorant of. And I'm always aware of my own errors. And so I also use the opportunity of having this platform to kind of learn few things that I myself do not know. As much as we might think that we have few things to share to the world, we also need to be cognizant of the fact that there are a lot of things that we also could be ignorant of. And so, my subject for today tells us around birthright. And I'm going to be giving you a perception on this subject. Yeah. So I said later it seems my network wants to give me a little bit of challenge today again. Why is it every Saturday? It seems the problem is maybe too much people are always online every Saturday, and that's why we always have challenges most times Saturdays. Please, if you're just joining, double tap your screen and show some like, just to show a little bit of support that you're here for the conversation that we're about to have. This morning, we want to discuss about birthright. And before I made a decision to talk about the subject on birthright, I overheard few things from a different channel. Not quite long, I was from a channel of one of my brother. He's a Nigerian brother who stays in Austria, in Europe, and he was talking about lands and talking about few things, and I was correcting his perspective on few things. But basically, he could not reason with whatever I say basically because I scold him whenever he talks negative about the country where he comes from. He kind of probably perceived that like I'm his enemy, and that's fine. And most times, a lot of people go towards every other person's channel, and you want to listen to what they are actually discussing there. But sometimes we always fail to understand that some people talk just based off they want to make content, and some people discuss basically because they have certain knowledge. There's a difference when someone is talking to you based off I just want to speak content for you to know that I am a content creator, and there's a difference when you are listening to people because you understand that they have knowledge about few things. And when you have knowledge about something, that does not mean that you have knowledge about everything. It is that you just have certain information about certain basic things that you are willing to share. So in my channel, most times when I realize that my spirit does not have much to offer, even if I know few things in my head, but I think I'm not in the spirit of offering anything to the people or to the viewers who are actually listening to me, I try my best. I try my best to make sure that I am in line of giving out. The purpose of the content is to give out, not to receive, or not just to receive from people. In a sense, like maybe I'm saying it because I want people to agree with my point of view, or I want people to give me things. So we're going to be discussing this morning about birthright, and there's a reason. While I was on live and we were having few conversation, I made a decision to even screenshot few of my discussion with Uncle Rudy when I went to his channel. I just wanted to see what he's having a conversation on. And so before I proceed, I will just introduce a little bit of Uncle Rudy to this conversation. And this is not just to fight him. This is to just make a little bit. Ola Web, thanks for joining. Been a while. Yeah, thanks for joining. Yeah, I was on a channel, and some of you would probably know the channel. The name is Uncle Rudy. And when I knew this particular individual, he talks about different things when it comes to country. He lives in the Europe, but he's from Nigeria, and he's one of my brothers in Nigeria. But sometimes he says negative things about Nigeria. Specifically, he's actually used to say negative things about the country or Africa where he comes from. And sometimes he will say negative things about the things that are also happening in Europe. And this morning he was having some conversations, and the conversation he was having is about how your land, some land is not going to favor you, and some lands are going to favor you. He spoke about country, he spoke about different perception on different lands. He said that sometimes the reason why certain people leave their ancestors' land and go to a different land to go and live there and make that place their home is basically because some of your ancestors' land is actually a curse. And because it is a curse, you have to live there to a different place. And when you move to a different place, wherever favors you in life becomes your home. According to him, he said, wherever you go to and you find peace there, that place becomes your home. And then he started narrating different reasons. He spoke about the issue of Abraham. And one of his analogy he used was that God had to call Abraham from his father's land simply because the land that Abraham was staying was an evil place. He said the land that Abraham was staying was an evil place, and that is why God had to take him out of that land, and God says, go to a different land. And I smiled at that conversation. I smiled at his opinion. And so I kind of challenged him a little bit, because his mentality and his brain is about, as a Nigerian or as an African person, you can leave your land and go to a different place. And if you find yourself in Europe, if you find yourself in UK, if you find yourself anywhere, it doesn't mean you are a missing child when you embody that particular land or that particular people, and you've made there your home. That means 2 generations from now, 3 generations from now, or that particular place finally has become your home. And I'm like, wow. First of all, do you really understand the scripture? When Abraham left his father's land and God called Abraham, God actually called Abraham for an adventure. The purpose why God called Abraham was for an adventure, not because the land of Abraham was evil. The Bible did not record that Abraham's father's land was evil. It was recorded in the Bible that God called Abraham and he says, there is a land I will show you. I want to make you a father of many nations. So that means Abraham had a vision. He has a connection with God. God did not say, Abraham, you have to leave your parents' place because your parents are evil or anything like that. In fact, Abraham was 90 years old when God called him for an adventure. Abraham, I repeat, was 90 years old before God called him. And when he left his father's land, when he went to his land and he had Sarah and he had Agar and he had maids and the rest of it, Abraham was first of all doing fine in the land of his father. Abraham was a wealthy person in the lands of his father. Abraham was not a poor man. There was no place that the Bible record that Abraham was poor. In fact, how did Abraham leave a different land and go to another land, and then he begins to have slaves, begins to have maid, begins to have all kinds of things, cows and the rest of it? Abraham was actually doing fine in the land of his own father. And there's a place I'm going to tie all these particular conversations to, if you can just be patient to listen. And so Abraham moved. He moved to a different land. But one of the things you can realize about Abraham is that regardless of all the situations Abraham was facing, passing through the land of Egypt and the rest of it, Abraham was for no moment saying negative things about his father or his mother or his parents or where he comes from. And you can remember that Abraham was doing fine. So one of his brother called Lot actually went with him. If they were not doing fine in the land that Abraham actually came from, why would his brother wants to follow him? But his brother found comfort in following him simply because, okay, I want to be part of the adventure of what you say you are about to participate in. But Abraham had a vision. And the vision was the promise that God had with him. And Sarah believed in him. And Sarah also went with him. And they went to a different land and they began to flourish. And then I told him, I corrected him, I said, the land that Abraham came from was not a land of evil. The land that Abraham came out from was not a land of evil. It was a land that God had to call Abraham after Abraham was 90 years old because God wanted to establish a relationship with Abraham. And when Abraham left his father's land, there was for no moment did Abraham say negative things about his father's home or where he came from or about his mothers, or saying that they were ancestors were greedy, his ancestors were stupid, his ancestors were idol worshippers and the rest of it. Abraham never said anything negative about his place. But how come do we get to a particular time in our life that whenever a lot of people leave their land and they move to a different land that favors them, then they begin to see their father's land as a land of evil? Then they begin to say negative things about their father. And then I said to him, I said, the Bible did not say the people of Abraham were evil. God called him into adventure. He already was wealthy before he left. Joseph went into Egypt as a slave. He became a minister and he brought his family, and the people of Israel became slaves in the land of Egypt for 430 years. Because he was saying something also, one of the word he was saying, he was referring also a particular subject to Israel, which was Jacob. He was saying something about Jacob, and one of the things he was saying about Jacob, which was Israel had a son, and one of them is Joseph, and Joseph was sold by his brother to the land of Egypt. And when he was sold to the land of Egypt, Potiphar bought him and the rest of it, and we know what happened. He found himself in jail. But because of the gift that Joseph had, Joseph finally found himself to become the minister in Egypt. And Joseph made a decision to use that particular opportunity to bring his brothers and sisters and his family to the land of Egypt. At least Joseph had a wife. Joseph had children. Joseph had a good life in Egypt. But because Egypt was not the house of Joseph, Egypt was not his origin. He was just a slave who found himself with an opportunity of becoming a minister there at some point after his death. After Israel died, after few people died, the people of Israelite, when they begin to multiply in the land of Egypt, Egyptians realized that they are not Egyptians, and Egyptians kept them as slaves in the land of Egypt. Because when things were terrible, the only reason why Joseph became a minister there was basically because of the dreams he had, and the dream was true. And so they saw that gift and they wanted to use the gift. And to compensate the gift that Abraham and that Joseph had, they had to make him a minister. But when Joseph, after a period of time, he brought his family to the land of Egypt, his family became slaves and they served in the land of Egypt for 430 years. So what does that mean? You might find yourself in some situations, you may find yourself in a different land, but because a land favors you, if that land is not the land of your ancestors, it is not the land of your ancestors. You cannot claim a place that you and your ancestors did not really belong in. You can be given privilege. They might give you privilege because you are coming to the economy or you are coming to the country to work. Why is it that US today, UK, Europe, why are they asking other people to come to their country? The reason why they are calling people to come into their country is so that you can come and invest in their country. Number one, if you are very wealthy, they want you to come invest in their country. Number two, The reason why they're asking you to come in their country is basically because they want you to work in their country. So you must be of addition to them, not subtraction to them. If a country does not need you, they would not ask you to say migrate to my country. So if they are giving you any opportunity, it is just a privilege. If you consider that because you have stayed in that nation for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, you will be surprised that that nation does not belong to you. Only one error that you need to do, and then they would remind you that you do not belong to that nation. Let us look at what happened in the UK not quite long. There are some black people over there who has been staying there for like 2-3 generations. The guy who actually took the knife and he did that particular evil to those baby, they reminded them that that boy, his ancestors were traced back to a different land. They did not say he's a son of the soil, regardless of the fact that they said that he was born in US. They described where his ancestors came from. So that means just because you are born in our nation does not mean you belong to this place. We might give you privilege, but that doesn't mean you belong here. And this is one of the things I used to tell people. Like, as Africans, you cannot go to diaspora, you can't go to the US and you think that because you are also an African person and we have the black Americans there, that means you have equal rights with the people that are there. You do not have equal right. Yes, you might be used as a pawn. Yes, you might have a little bit of advantage. Yes, they might be using you just to be able to get back at the black Americans, but it doesn't mean that you as an African, you belong in that place. When they wipe out the black Americans, you are going to find yourself in the place that you really truly are. Then you would realize that you do not belong there. So he left this place, he left African, and he went to a different place. He found himself in Europe, and one way or the other he's surviving. He had few children and the rest of it, and then he begins to call himself, and he says he has first-class citizen. He's a first-class citizen of the Europe. And I smile at him. I'm like, oh boy, you don't know what's going on. There are different generations that makes a land what it is. What do you understand about your ancestors? And let us even take this opportunity to learn from the story of Abraham. And this is how you should understand how you are supposed to act when you move into a different land that does not belong to you. When Abraham, when he found himself in a different land, there was a conversation between he and his brother Lot. And then he splitted the land, and Lot took a different portion and Abraham took a different portion. Remember, I said something that Abraham never said anything negative about his parents. He never said anything negative about where he came from. And the same thing was applicable when Lot was having challenges, when the Bible was talking about Sodom and Gomorrah, and the angel came and God was talking to Abraham, and he says, I want to destroy the land of Lot. Go and take Lot and his family out of the place. Abraham did not condemn the place of his brother, or did Abraham say, God, destroy them? Or Abraham says that, oh, these people are staying in an animal kingdom. Since they are immoral, since they are unrighteous, oh Lord, you can take your opportunity and just destroy them. Unlike certain Africans, who the moment they leave Africa, they think that the land they find themselves, just because they earn more money. And it's not as if most of these people are wealthy there. The only thing is that the currency of the money you are holding is more higher than the currency of your father's land. It doesn't mean that you are more successful there than the other place, because the indigenous people of that land have the right to be more, to make more wealth than you. So regardless of the fact that you might find yourself having opportunities there, it doesn't mean that it belongs to you. And so when Abraham was praying, he was talking to God that, God, please have mercy on the people of Lot. And this is what a lot of people cannot think. And I asked myself a question. I talked about, if during the time of the Jewish has said, oh, this land does not belong to us, and because of that we have to separate ourselves, and then we destroy the Jewish community since we are going through the hardship of the Holocaust and the rest of it. African has not gone through what the Jewish community went through. Yes, we have gone through certain things like slavery and the rest of it, and all of them are all difficult and bad. But we have not been reduced to a little amount, just like the Jewish community. Yet, because we have a challenge in our nation, does not mean we have to abandon our nation. And you see, I do not knock off people just because you leave my nation or you leave your father's nation and you go to a different place to make ends meet for yourself. There's nothing wrong about it. There's a possibility you just go to that country just so you can make some money. You might go to that country simply because you think that place is going to favor you. You might go to that country because you think that it's going to be a great place for you, and there's nothing wrong about it. The only thing that is wrong is when you begin to think that because you found yourself there, now that place belongs to you. Even to your third generation, at some point they will remind you. Kamala Harris issues that is going on, and people begin to question Kamala Harris. People are not questioning if Kamala Harris was born in the United States. People are questioning her heritage, where she actually comes from. They are questioning the heritage of where Kamala comes from. Why are they not giving that same questions to Donald Trump? It is basically because they understand, and she herself knows, that if she exposes her heritage, where she comes from, they might see it and people will get convinced that no, we are not supposed to let her become a president here. There's a man, some of you might be conversant with him. They call him Patrick Bet-David. He is the owner of Valuetainment, PBD podcast. And I think he came from Iran, and from Iran he came to the US, and he has established a multi-million business in the United States, and he has a couple of children in the United States. But that doesn't mean that US, yes, he will claim US is his nationality. He will say he's proud of being an American, but he said he would have loved to become a president in the country, but he cannot be a president in the country. Why? Because he was not born in that country. And US is one of the most free nations. When you look at Chinese stays in their place. You cannot allow, the reason why Chinese have too many populations and they are not bringing other people is basically because they understand that they need themselves. So Chinese do not ask other people to come into their country. What Chinese are doing is to protect their land and to make sure that they become productive to other nations. And this is how they become more powerful. Russian are doing the same thing. It doesn't mean once in a while they wouldn't pick people. If you are a millionaire and you have a very big status and you can contribute to their nation, that is the only time they want to give you visa to come to their nation. Nobody wants to give you visa to come to their nation if you're going to be a trouble in that nation. The difference is this: your birthright, when you belong to a particular land, When you come from a particular land, nobody can tell you to go back to the land of your ancestors if you really do come from the land of your ancestors. As a Nigerian, the only thing I can do is to defend my father's land. And to defend my father's land, all I can do is to stand by it. Some people cannot defend their father's land just because they find trouble there. Just because it did not profit them. I always say this. You might think it's about opportunity. You can be creative in anywhere in the world, and you can be successful in anywhere in the world. Most people, the person who is actually talking and saying all these kind of things, when you look at his life compared to a lot of lives of people who are actually in Nigeria, who actually make it in Nigeria, you will see there's nothing you can use to, look at it, and you will say these people are more successful in Africa, regardless of the fact. And I'm not mocking them. I'm not saying because they do this, it means they are poor or whatever. That's not the point. The point is that most of these people sell their birthright. Because when you leave your ancestors' land and you move to a different land, and you say that, it's because my ancestors' land, there's too many commotion there, there's too many trouble there, and so I am not supposed to contribute to my father's land. See, one of my brother, he tends to be in the UK. He's a nurse in the UK, and he always says some statement, and I look at him and I laugh. He said, my children are doing well and the rest of it in the UK, blah, 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 and I don't think there's any reason why they want to come to Africa. And then when you look at these same individuals, you will realize that a lot of them, they would make choice like having children in Africa. And I'm like, sometimes when most people find themselves in this land, some people are lucky. Some of these people are lucky to be able to succeed in the land. But majority of the people who come to that land are not successful in the land. But they paint a picture different to the Africans. And the picture they paint to Africans, they begin to look down on Africa, and then they begin to tell their brothers who are looking up to them to say, you are living a low life, sell everything you have, because some of them are very successful. Some Nigerians have had house, some Africans are doing well in their life, but because of those people in diaspora who would start telling you that, no, don't worry, in the Europe here, we are doing more better than Africa, then you go there and you see that they are squatting in a house. Then you see that the house they are living is just something like a cup of tea. Where in their father's land they have bigger buildings. But just because we are looking up to them, before you know, they distort your building, they distort your mind, and a lot of people will sell their inheritance, their properties, everything they've made in their life. They will sell it and they go to Europe, and later they have nothing in life, and then they scream like their wife left them when they get to Europe or when they get to diaspora. They will say, my wife left me and ran away. When you made an illogical decision in your life, when you did not understand what is your birthright. You see, in your father's land, regardless of anything, you understand that there are certain rights you truly have there. In the land where you go, it is the right that is being given to you. If a governor or if a president, for example, if a president comes up in Europe, wherever, the Austria, and it says, we do not want black people in the nation anymore, all the black people, won't you go? If America say they do not want any Africans anymore, won't the people of Africans go? They would do a background check and they would know you do not belong to the black Americans. Your accent is enough. Apart from your accent, they can hold you and they can do a little bit of background check and they would know you came from Africa and they will send you back. It is just a situation that needs to arise. I'm not praying such situation arise, but I'm just like, people are so ignorant to understand that the land that they came from, it is the land of their ancestors. It is your birthright. Regardless of the challenges you face, life is a place where there are challenges in everything we do. Whatever choice you make in life, there's going to be a challenge. And I'm not saying the importance of you traveling out of the country is supposed to be for two things. One of it is supposed to be that you travel out of the country, you want to work, you want to earn something so you can take care of your land, of the land that your father has given to you, or the land of your ancestors. Or you go to a different land and you just go to view things. Why didn't the Europeans, regardless of everything, why didn't the Europeans and the British, why didn't they take the land of Africa? Because it doesn't belong to them. Regardless of the fact that they were able to enslave, regardless of the fact that they were able to dominate, regardless of the fact that they were able to manipulate, yet they realized that the land does not belong to them. Yes, they might be stealing crude oil. Yes, there might be a way where they manipulate and still take crude oil and some materials in the nation, but the day the people of the nation will fully be awake and understand what is going on around them, all that trick they are doing is going to stop. But they could not take the land because the biggest thing that anyone would have on the surface of this earth is a land. Some people will tell you, oh, you don't need to have anything, you can just have a car, you can just have this, but you don't need to own anything and you'll be happy. And you will see that these same people who are telling you all these things, you will realize that they have all kinds of land. They want to purchase your land, they want to have all your land, but they will tell you that you don't need to have a land, and you are rushing to those nations where you do not have the right to own anything, and you think because you're successful you buy a house and you pay tax. I'm in Africa. I can't pay tax for owning a house. Why? Because it is my inheritance. Why? Because it is with my ancestors. Why? Because it is my birthright. The work of the people to protect their nation is to give the people of their nation the greatest benefit. The problem of the black is simply because they are still being oppressed. They are still being enslaved. They don't want them to go out of that place. A lot of black Americans have been thinking to come to Africa, but they have to manipulate and inject things in their head, like the Africans are still living in the zoo, like the Africans are still running with their pants around and holding arrows and running with horses. They have to paint those pictures. In Africa, you need to wake up from your slumber. You need to understand the realities of life. Most people do not understand the concept and the rules of engagement of life. And so it is easy for them to move to a different land and say that, oh, this land belongs to my father. This land, I found myself here and that means it's my land, simply because I have citizenship. Citizenship doesn't mean it's given to you and it can be revoked. If you're not an indigene of a land, you can be given citizenship and that citizenship can be revoked. In fact, your rights are limited. Your rights are limited. And when people do not understand it, And then they begin to move around and say, oh, I came from Africa and now I've moved to Europe, and because of that I'm blessed. And sometimes I just look at them. The people who make some of these statements, when you look at them truly, they don't have anything. In the Europe, in the US, they do not have anything. You buy a house and you are paying tax on your house. You have to ask the government before you dig borehole. You have to ask the government before you do anything. Yes, the government have the right over there to demand that you do all those things. In my place here, government cannot tell me where to dig borehole. Government cannot tell me how to live my life. Once I purchase a land, it is my right to have those things there because it is a birthright. This is the idea and the concept about nationality. This is a concept about ancestors. This is a concept about becoming an indigene or being an indigene of somewhere because you have certain rights. Yes, you might have conflict with your people, but you need to understand that what belongs to you or wherever you come from, that is the only place you can truly make a change in. Look at all the great things Michael Jackson did. What are the great things Michael Jackson did in the US? Regardless of all the great things Michael Jackson has done for the people of America and all of that, at the end of the day, it was limited to be what? It was limited to being a black man. What about R. Kelly? What about Puff Daddy? And a lot of celebrities, according to what we are seeing, are still going to go down. Why? The nation do not want the black people to be successful over there. Why? Because they understand that the reason why the black people are even part of those places is basically because they brought them there as a slave. A slave cannot have the same rights with the children of that particular place. And I trust me, I understand little history about the Indian, the people, the real indigenous people of the Americans, and how some of them have been wiped out. I understand this. But the white people who have been there for countless of years are controlling more of the land, and they might be giving the people, the indigenous people of that place, they have more rights than just an average American. And the blacks, since the blacks tends to be from the slave, they do not want to give the blacks the rights. And that is why the blacks are their enemy. Every single time we keep saying, one day, according to Martin Luther King, I have a dream that one day black and white are going to hold each other's hand, that they will be judged by the content of their character and not by the color of their skin. Till date, it is not working. That is not a dream, that is a nightmare. Because for that dream to come to pass, the black Americans have to go and trace their father's land, their ancestors' land. They can only flourish when they go back to where they truly own, where their ancestors actually came from. Until then, it is just going to be a principle, a philosophy, a dream, and a vision, but it cannot be accomplished. Why? Because nobody wants to give you the same rights with him when he thinks or when he believes that they are the indigenous people of that particular place. And so that's why we have what we have at the moment. And so when they call a lot of Africans, and most Africans goes to diaspora, and they are giving more Africans privilege than the black Americans, I tell them, this is just a game. This is just a setup. Yes, they would say, oh, they stole things from our father's land, and that's the reason why they are giving us more opportunity. But these particular people, you took them from our father's land and you brought them there. Why are you giving me more opportunity than you're giving to some of them? Some of them are actually making more money than you. The problem is you are thinking that the money that you're earning, because it is big in the currency of your ancestors' place, you are saying, oh, I am earning more. You want to come and show me that you are beautiful?
I'm always beautiful. So that's what I say now. I'll be going anytime soon.
When are you coming back?
Soon. I'm not staying
2 hours.
because I split it.
That's how you say, oh. Then you go out now, you not want to come back.
Maybe whenever.
What is the time?
This is almost 2.
This is almost 2. So if you go around 2, at least by
5.
you see.
If you do your video, let me know. But I'll come back before 5.
All right.
Thank you.
Boy, where's Kolade?
Zero. I'm seeing mommy on last place here.
Where are you actually going to?
Yeah, first.
Where will you now go to?
We started, but now we meet our go there together. Now, so that she will just see us because she acknowledged us that we should come. But this one is our new person.
You are fine now. Now my girlfriend at the full talk. I'm already rounding up. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, it is the truth of life. It is the truth of life. And if you consider that you have been in a different land, and because you have been there, then it simply means you are part of the people who own that land just because you are being given certain privilege. Sorry about it. Sorry about it. Because the time of reality is going to hit up in your face. And when it does, then you would know where you truly belong. With that being said, I'll be coming back live later today's evening, and we are going to have a continuation of our subject, which we speak upon on why settling for less. We are going to continue on that particular subject. Thank you everyone for joining me at the moment. Hope to have conversations with you later today. Have a great day. See you in the next one. Adios, amigos. Bye bye for now.